When your practice area is too broad, you don't know which conferences to go to, which journals to pitch to, or what to say on social media. So you end up posting boring LinkedIn posts about recent case law. Now that's not going to build a clear brand or attract your ideal client. Believe me. My name is Cecilia Poulain. Welcome to the Pathway to Partnership podcast. On this podcast, we talk about what it really takes to succeed as a woman lawyer in a law firm. My name is Cecilia Poulain. I'm a former finance lawyer, but today I help women lawyers make it to partnership and thrive when they get there, using the tools and insights I've developed in my Pathway to Partnership program. In this podcast, you'll get clarity on whether partnership is truly what you want. You will build your confidence and you will master client development in a way that feels sustainable. So let's get you walking into the office every morning, clear on why you're aiming for partnership, free of imposter syndrome, and confident in your ability to bring in clients without burning out. Okay, let's jump in. Just before the summer, a client sent me her business plan to review. And the main thing that struck me as I was reading through it was that she was planning to do everything. Write a book, start a podcast, write articles, run conferences, post on LinkedIn, client lunches, and so on, and so on, and so on. But before working on her business plan, we actually backed up a couple of steps. Because not only did she want to do everything, she was also trying to cover 4 different types of client. And that was going to make her life so much more difficult. Why do women lawyers think like this? It's because they're incredibly intelligent, they're highly educated, and so they can actually do an awful lot of things. And so they think they should. At the same time, there is a real tension between developing your skills as a lawyer, not getting bored, becoming a great lawyer because you've looked at so many different things, and then developing a brand. And we'll look at how to at least partially resolve that tension in a moment. But first, let's look at what happens when your brand is too broad. Well, people don't really know what you do. Even when you're talking to people inside your firm, they might not really understand. And that's magnified with lawyers outside your firm who might refer you work. And it's even worse with clients. Clients and referral lawyers don't come to you because you look like a generalist who does everything. Instead, they come to you because you're a specialist. So if you think GP versus heart surgeon. And if you're a generalist, it generally means you can't charge specialist rates. And when you're too broad, you end up spending too little time on too many things and not actually doing any of them well. And it also means that in terms of marketing, you don't know which conferences to go to, you don't know which journals to write for, you don't know what to say on social media. So you end up posting bland, boring LinkedIn posts about recent case law. Now, that is not going to build a clear brand or attract your ideal client. But when you start to position yourself in the market, your life gets so much easier. It gets so much easier because you develop your legal expertise in that particular area. It gets so much easier because you start to understand your client's specific problems. And it means that not only do you get better at solving those problems, but also in terms of marketing, you can speak directly to your client's problems. And that's what's going to catch their attention. Your marketing becomes so much easier because you know what to post, you know where to go, you know what to write. And it also becomes easier because you don't have to do it all. You can pick and choose. You can just do what you like. I was talking to 2 women lawyers recently, and one of them said, I absolutely love writing. I love going into the nitty-gritty. I love writing articles. And the other one said, if I could never write an article again in my life, I would be so happy. So when you get very clear on your positioning, you can choose which marketing activities you want to do and which you don't. But you also know where your clients are likely to come from. Perhaps they're quite a narrow group and you already know them all. So for example, if you're working for private equity firms, if you're working for aviation companies, then posting on LinkedIn is pretty much useless because you're much better off just contacting them directly. But if your potential audience is very broad, as may be the case with personal injury litigation, for example, then LinkedIn or even Facebook might be the place to be. Your marketing depends on your positioning. But there are risks with positioning. If you go too narrow, then if regulations change, if the market shifts, you could be left stranded. A friend told me about a woman partner who had a thriving practice in a very niche area. But then the market changed, the regulations changed, and the whole thing just disappeared from underneath her. And it was too late in her career to change her focus, so she actually retired soon afterwards. If you're too niche, you may actually not have enough work. So when I was a derivatives lawyer in France in a firm, there actually just wasn't enough work in that area for external counsel. So even though that was my external brand, the work I was doing was on broader finance. Seth Godin talks about having the smallest viable audience. So working out who your audience is, having the smallest audience possible, but then making sure that that audience is actually viable, is big enough for you to get enough work and enough clients. Another problem with being too niche is that you might just get bored. If you do only one thing for years, that can just really burn you out. So many years ago, I heard that there was a US law firm where lawyers actually had to change speciality every 5 years because it made them more well-rounded, it made them more collaborative, it made them actually have a much wider understanding of how the law worked and to be able to bring concepts from one area of law into another area. But it's also exhausting. So there's a real balance here about finding focus without boxing yourself in. But positioning doesn't have to be all or nothing. There are many ways to approach it. The first and most obvious way is just to go all in. So you pick one area and you just do that. A second way of doing it is actually have a brand. So brand yourself in one area publicly, but you still do, as I did, you still do other work behind the scenes. And that's in fact what I do today. My brand is working with women lawyers to become partner or when they've just become partner. But I also actually work with a lot of women general counsels or heads of legal departments or heads of teams. And I also work with a few men. What you might want to do is, if you've got, say, 2 or 3 specialities, is to choose an umbrella niche like private client or business law, which gives you more flexibility, but it's still focused enough for people to identify what you do. I had a client who was doing human rights litigation, but she was also working with corporate clients on compliance. And she really liked them both. And so instead of choosing one or the other, she went upwards and we found an umbrella title that found the similarities and covered them both. And in particular, she was able to market to her corporate clients that because she was in court and really knew what risks were being litigated, she had a very unique perspective about what risks they should be looking out for. You might decide to position not by what you do, but by who you serve. So you might, for example, say that you're a legal advisor for startups or a lawyer for healthcare professionals. There's actually a law firm that's just opened up around the corner from my place in Paris. It specialises in law for old people. You might focus on a particular pain point, like helping creatives protect their work or shareholder disputes. Or what you might want to do, especially if you're a younger lawyer, is actually start broad, build a wide experience. Don't niche too early. And then gradually, as you figure out what you really love doing and what there is a market for, get narrower and narrower and narrower. It's okay for your positioning to evolve. You might also want to position yourself for a time. So say something like, this quarter, I'm helping families set up trusts for aging parents, because then that creates urgency. If people need what you're offering in that quarter, then they're more likely to reach out if they know that there's a deadline. And it also means that you can test whether you actually have your smallest viable audience. I would suggest that you run these tests for long enough, because often when we start marketing something, the marketing bears fruit after 3 months. So you probably need to run it for at least 6 months or a year. Here are a few questions you might like to ask yourself to help you think about your own direction. First question is, what kind of work do you really love doing? Who are the clients you love working for? And if you just said naturally what you do, what would you say? What are you already becoming known for, even if you didn't plan it that way? Where do your best clients come from? Why did they pick you? So they're just a few questions that you can ask yourself when you're thinking about your positioning. So just to sum it all up, positioning helps you stand out, connect deeply with your ideal client, and make smarter choices about how you market and grow. But it's also a balancing act. And particularly for younger lawyers, it's okay to evolve over time. Thanks so much for joining me on the Pathway to Partnership podcast. I really appreciate it. I hope that today's episode has given you greater clarity and confidence on your own pathway to partnership. If you found this conversation useful, please subscribe. Please share it with a colleague. Please leave a review. And let's together help more women make it to partnership and thrive when they get there. And if you'd like to find out more about how you can work with me, head over to ceciliapoulin.com. You'll find resources, freebies, ways we can work together. So until next time, remember, you don't have to do this all alone. And you get to define success as a woman lawyer on your own terms. Thanks for listening.